purified, you are able to communicate. Oh, much better. Oh, then, sorry, I say that a lot. Never mind. Then visualize with the third recitation of Song Ye. Please visualize that blue light emanates from the Buddha's heart center and floats through space very gently till it touches your heart center. Please visualize that at the moment it touches your heart center, that your mind itself is purified, that seeds are planted there, all for your own awakening. Please have these visualizations, if you can, going as we recite refuge. Song Ye Chö Dang So Chi Chok Nama La Chan Shub Wara Do Dai Ni Kyab Su Chio Da Gi Jin So Ge Pe So Nam Ki Ro La Pen Shi Song Ye Dru Para Sho. Second time, red light. Song Ye Chö Dang So Chi Chok Namya La Chan Shub Wara Do Dai Ni Kya Su Chio Da Gi Jin So Gi Pe So Nam Ki Ro La Pen Shi Song Ye Dru Para Sho. Last time, blue light. Song Ye Chö Dang So Chi Sho Namya La Chan Chub Wara Do Dai Ni Kyab Su Chio Da Gi Jin So Gi Pe So Nam Ki Ro La Pen Shi Song Ye Ru Para Sho. I am so happy to see so many of you. Thank you for coming. So, already my last night has arrived. Sometimes it's hard to believe how fast time flies. Just got here. Tomorrow morning early, on my way. Oh, enough about me. Tonight's topic is women in Buddhism or women and Buddhism. In the States, I teach these topics over 2 semesters at university. I teach women in Buddhist literature. That's a semester. And women and Buddhism, which takes up issues of women and Buddhism and comes to contemporary times. So we're going to try to cover some of that in 3 hours, 2.5 hours. Ready? Oh. People don't have notebooks. Maybe I should have planned a little better. What I would say, I wanted to recommend some books. We can do this later. We can send them to you later. Oh. I don't know whether your library has books like the Therigattas in translation. Okay, I can send those titles. So I say tika hai a lot. It's just my way of pausing. It's also Hindi. I've said, tika hai. I emphasize tika hai. And I say, oh, quite a bit. Which is also a pause, or yes, or so in Tibetan. Now, so I'd like it if, I think it would be good if your library had such titles as, there are various translations of what's called the Therigattas, the psalms or the songs, the triumphant songs of the Buddhist nuns. And there are various translations. One came out in 2016 by a Charles Hallisey that's quite wonderful. You see the Pali and the English translations. Another is Susan Murcott's translation called, does Susan call hers? The First Buddhist Women. And then there's so Susan Murcott, M-U-R-C-O-T-T, First Buddhist Women. Then there's one called by Christine Toomey that has two titles. One is The Saffron Road, interviews as Christine Toomey, a UK journalist, travels 60,000 miles and interviews contemporary nuns in short chapters that I hope you'll find engaging. The Saffron Road. The other title of it is In Search of Buddha's Daughters. I'd also like to recommend Nuns and Benefactresses, which I wrote in 1985. It came out in a collection called Women, Religion, and Social Change. Oh, we thought we were just, second wave feminists. We were doing it. We were at this conference for 3 days, and all us women scholars, and some worked on Hinduism, some worked on Jainism. I did this paper on nuns and benefactresses, women in the development of Buddhism, and that came out in a 1986 volume published by the State University of New York, SUNY Press. And I say that to say, when we saw the volume, we couldn't believe it. It was hot pink. Pink! Somehow they let that book come out with a pink cover. Us tough women, we were bad, The book comes out in pink. Couldn't believe it. Who couldn't have stopped that? But at any rate, the title of my piece was Nuns and Benefactresses, the Role of Women in the Development of Buddhism. And next year, in April of 2020, a volume of my collected essays will appear. It's called Dharma Matters. Women, Race, and Tantra, collected essays over 35, 40 years. And this essay is republished there. So, let me just begin with a few comments. In the Buddha's day, 6th century BC India, women, just by virtue of being women in female bodies, weren't so highly regarded. They were born into Aryan civilization, where the roles were very structured, and even children had more legal rights than women. In the two longest continuous civilizations that we have in China and in India. The same held if you had a female body. You were bound to the so-called 3 obediences. As a child, you were bound to your parents. As an adult, you were bound to a husband. And in old age, you were bound to your children. You were never free and independent. In a legal text, a woman is counted below a child. She is to be a sati, what is called a sati, what is in accord with reality, sat. A sati, she is to be man's best friend, his helpmeet. Many of the Manu Shastras say that a woman proves her worth as the sati to a man, which means that if her child were to crawl into a fire while she held her, I'm quoting, paraphrasing, while she holds her husband's head in her lap, she should not move to pull the child from the fire. That is a demonstration of sati. That proves she is truly devoted to him. Okay. I don't believe it. Yeah, this is true. One of the best pictures of Indian society, I think, I still recommend it, though it was first published in 1954 by A.L. Basham. It's called The Wonder That Was India. You should also have that somewhere. The Wonder That Was India. Well, in The Wonder That Was India, chapter 5 is called Society and Culture in Indian. It's fantastic. So I didn't write these things on the board. But Basham begins with the largest democratic country, still true, in terms of population, and the most undemocratic because of the caste system, he meant. So there's caste system, there's places for children, there's places for women. The Aryans quickly determined that there was no longer need for the Brahmins, the warriors to be out front. You know, Aryan migration began in the steppes in Europe and then came through Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan and into India. And in India, that whole migration of peoples came to a halt in the Gangetic Plain. And that brought about a cultural shift. And the two parts of society there had been from those times of the first migration, for what reason, still a mystery, deforestation, whatever. There were only two groups of Aryans. There were commoners and there were warriors. The warriors led the trip, and sometimes they fought through people and they marched all the way to India, and then in India they came to a halt. Why? Because they found this totally fertile place. This took 1,500 years, and there were different tribes of people coming. And the biggest tribe was Bharata. So India's first classic name on the Aryans is Bharata. And the great Indian war is the Mahabharata, which you read about, the epic. They stopped. And when they stopped, the Brahmins asserted that there was no longer a need for the warriors to be out front, but there was certainly a need to keep in touch with the gods. And that was their function. They are Brahmins. They are in control of breath, which is cognate with breath. They have a way of speaking. The Vedic carries the word to the gods. But the people who actually spoke Vedic were pushed down to, I need a map, were pushed down into southern India, becoming the Deccan. And those people, and so in North India, I'll move on soon. In North India, Aryans divided themselves. They subdivided these two groupings into four major groupings, with the Brahmins at the top, and then the warriors, Kshatriya, and then the commoners, Vaishyas, and then Shudras. So who were Shudras? They were people who became slaves, intermarried with Aryans, but became the servants of the three higher castes. The servants, the Shudras. These are the people that Mahatma Gandhi named Harijans. They're children of God, to change the respectability. You know, they're no longer Shudras, the feet of humanity to be stepped on. What's dirty? Shudras. But they are God's children, Harijans. Okay. Where do women fit there? The laws said that everybody in Aryan society, which included the three higher castes, not Shudras, that every boy by the age of 12 could undergo a ceremony where he became a citizen, an Aryan citizen. Okay, Shudras could not do that, and women officially couldn't do that either. So women were always, I feel as though I should say, I'm sorry, I'm not making this up, but women didn't have rights that men had, and women didn't have any legal rights. Into that environment, the Buddha comes. And the Buddha did two very radical things. One, he said that any person of any caste could join the Sangha. What? You know, if we can't eat together and we can't share certain things, you're gonna invite them together into the same community? He did. Any caste. And then, 5 years after he had been preaching his dharma, the Buddha was asked by his aunt, and he apparently agreed to found an order of nuns. He allowed women into his Sangha. In 6th century BC India, that was pretty radical. Only two religious traditions in India allowed that, and they are both alive today. One is Jainism with Mahavira. Mahavira allowed women, and one wondered in those days, how could you allow women? Because the Jain saints went about naked. You couldn't have women roaming about naked, and so we get the arising of what's called Shvetamvara Jains. That is, Jain saints as men were open to the sky. That was their characterization. They wore nothing. But women wore white cloths. That was the innovation. Women could wear white cloths and be Jains. Now, you might ask, and so did members of the Buddha's early Sangha, especially the men who were already monks, asked, you're saying that women can leave the realm of domesticity and join the men who are following you out there in the forest? What? Oh, scandal. And the Buddha had a hard time because Mahavira allowed for the going forth of women. There are all these stories, and they all say 5 years, and some of it's just, apocrypha. But it's said that Mahavira had done it 5 years before the Buddha, so the Buddha had been able to see the backlash, and there was a lot of it. Now I say all this to set up this one text, Kulavagga 10. Kulavagga 10 is a text in the Pali, in the Vinaya. It means small basket, small text in this case. And this particular text talks about the founding of the nuns order. And it's had a lot of repercussions, a lot of consequences. And I want to mention it because it still has consequences, but it's not a canonical text. It is in the canon, but people will tell you, oh no, nuns don't have to abide by that. They have to abide by lots of other things, but not these 8 in particular. Anila, you can tell us, but maybe. If you will. But Kulavagga 10 is a text. And I ask my students, after we go through the text and we talk about the different themes, I ask students to think who might have written such a text and why. Why was it necessary? So Kulavagga 10 tells the story of the Buddha's aunt, who is, you'll recall if you know anything about the Buddhist legends, Buddhist life, the Buddha's aunt raised him because his own biological mother died 7 days after he was born. Right? She died 7 days after he was born. That had been predicted. She must be stainless, beautiful, all those things, and she must die 7 days after he's born. And so she did. And so the Buddha, young Siddhartha, was raised by his aunt, whose name was Maha Prajapati. So the Buddha has left home as he did. He's meditated for 6 years, very, very strenuous meditation. So 2 rice grains a day, 3 sesame seeds a day. And then he's broken through. He's seen reality. He's seen dependent origination. He's seen all those things, and he's gathered a following. And some years after he's become this renowned teacher, because his dharma is so unique, he returns home. Then, at that time, his aunt, seeing him, asks if he will admit her to his Sangha. And in this text, there is something called the Buddha's hesitation, because Mahaprajapati approaches the Buddha and says, "It were well, Lord, if you would allow some of us to join you and your group, and so to take teachings directly from you." And the Buddha apparently, according to this text, says, "Be careful, Prajapati, be careful of the going forth of women." And again she approaches him, "Be careful, Gautami." And again, 3 times, the Buddha said, "Be careful." Now people say, that means he didn't just say, "Yeah, sure, I'll let in nuns." He hesitated. This is a trope, the Buddha's hesitation in Kulavagga 10. And then, where's Kaiser? And then, we saw an image of Anand yesterday at the East Asian Museum. Remember Anand? Solitary figure, red rosy lips, all by himself. Our helpers didn't point him out, but he was there, and Kaisa and I took pictures by him. Anand, in this story, the Buddha said, "Be careful" 3 times, and Mahaprajapati, his aunt, thinking that he does not allow women to join his Sangha, goes away disheartened. Then, it's a dramatic little text, then Ananda steps forward. "Lord, are women capable? Are women able? If you describe for them this meditative path, can they follow it?" And the Buddha says, "Of course. What would stop them?" And he said, "Well, Lord, it were well if you allowed women to go then. If they can do it, let them in." And apparently the Buddha says to Anand, "Be careful, Anand, of the going forth of women from the domestic life into the homeless life, from home into the homeless life." So Anand is shown arguing then, debating with the Buddha. "But Lord, you said they could. And now, Lord, if they can, and this woman who raised you from the time you were 7, Anand brings all that to bear, why don't you relent and allow them And then in this text, this all happens in like 3 or 4 pages. The Buddha says, okay. So as a result, 2 things are going on. As a result of a nun's pleading for women's admission, a nun is celebrated in Zen nunneries, in Japanese nunneries. A nun is celebrated for 3 months of the year. He's called the first feminist. Anand, not Maha Prajapati, Anand. And if you know the stories in Buddhism, before Anand, the Buddha's cousin who became his attendant, and he is the one who says, Evam Maya Shrutam Ekasmin Samaye. It's Anand who says, thus at a certain time, in a certain place, the Buddha said. That's Anand. He remembers all the sutra. So he's really quite famous anyway. Anand is known in the texts that describe the individual characters' lives. Anand was a great playboy. So it's ironic. He was a great playboy. The Buddha had to find magic ways and to pull Anand into his Sangha, because Anand was so infatuated by women. So it's interesting to go into their life stories. So Anand pleads for women's admission. And I always think that's a great irony, playboy, he's the great feminist. But then the Buddha says, okay, if she, meaning Maha Prajapati, if she is willing to undertake the 8 special rules I declare, then she can become a nun. Later, when Maha Prajapati shows up, she shows up with 500 women. But these 8, though they're for everyone, it's only Maha Prajapati who can become a nun if she accepts them. The other of her entourage, they have to wait 2 years, and it has to be observed how well they are handling these 8. So, now, but keep in mind, who knows who wrote this text? This particular text, and what was going on that it needed to be written. Intriguing. So there are these 8 so-called weighty regulations, Gaura Dharma. Now let me just say that Gaura, or Gauru in Pali, is the Pali for the Sanskrit guru as an adjective. Guru as an adjective means heavy, weighty. These are serious matters. It's funny that we got heavy out of that, so modern, 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 not postmodern. Okay, heavy. And the feminine of that guru Sanskrit would be groovy. Guruvi, groovy. Hey, that's groovy, man. That's women, they're heavy. Okay, that's just playing with Sanskrit, sorry. But they're called the 8 weighty regulations. They're extra, they're just for women. So what do they say? Well, not all of them are. All right, what do they say? Oh, okay. This is the Buddha telling a nun what the women have to do. In the presence of monks, a nun, women are expected to request ordination to go forth. Women have to ask monks. In the presence of monks, a nun must seek the teachings every half month. And this is a rule to be undertaken with no transgression possible. Third, no nun may spend a rainy season, a nun, in a place where no monks are present. All right. Can't go off on your own, I've got a reputation. Men and women out here together with me, Some of it makes sense. After the rainy season, a nun must have both orders. She must have a ceremony before both the men's Sangha and the women's Sangha in order to declare whatever faults she may have committed. Men don't have to do it before. Monks don't have to do it before nuns, but nuns have to do it before nuns and then monks. Then, now they get kind of heavy. Number 5, it is forbidden that a nun accuse or warn a nun, that a monk, it is forbidden that a nun accuse or warn a monk about a transgression in morality. It is not forbidden that a monk accuse or warn a woman about transgression. So scolding can only go one way. The accusations can only go one way. Number 6, a nun should not scold or be angry with or admonish a monk. When a nun violates important rules, penance must be performed every half month. That's okay. And this is the 8th one in this translation. The 8th one says, a nun of 100 years of age shall perform the correct duties towards a monk. She shall, with her hands folded in prayerful attitude, rise up, greet him, and bow down to him. And this will be done with appropriate words of salutation, even if that monk has been a monk but that very day. If she's been a nun 100 years, seniority doesn't matter here. And he's just been ordained, she has to bow down, greet, do anjali to him. Okay. Carmelite Chisomo and I've had many conversations about these weighty regulations, and what she tells me is that during ordination ceremonies, which can last up to 3 months, these Mayan ones, these ones that she's attended, because you're getting instruction on all sorts of things. How your robe has to be just so, how this, that, and the other, and you're hearing lectures every day. And depending upon tradition, you're told the specific rules that you as a nun of that particular Buddhist tradition must obey. They're not all the same. The numbers are not all the same. What's general is that a monk takes 263 vows, a woman takes 327. You wonder about that, like what's going on there. But what Carmelite Somo has said, to me at least, and I'm willing to hear all dissenting voices, what she said is, you are reminded of these 8 every day. You never take them, but you hear about them for 3 months. Because, but you don't officially take them, so what are you upset about? Well, some Westerners, some of you have even seen, I think, may have seen an American monk, when Peter Kedge, and when he was a monk, long years ago, and a monk named, a monk name. I can see his picture so clearly. An American monk was put in charge of seating at a congregation of gathering. I think His Holiness was there, and he was put in charge of seating people. And he, by seniority, because people, by their ordination date, are seated. And he said, he saw firsthand, he says this to His Holiness in the tape, the spiritual awakening of 2 days of meetings between His Holiness and other Dharma teachers, that he stands and says, that was the time I was confronted head on with this, with the sexism and the inequality, when I had to do it. Then he gave up robes, but he was saying this to His Holiness that seemed so duplicitous, it seemed so wrong. This is the modern age. He was arguing. So Carmelite Somo says, well, you never take actually those 8, but you hear about them every day, and it makes an impression. If you're a woman, it makes an impression. Okay, so who might have written this? And why would it have been necessary to write something that makes clear and inscribes the inferiority or the second-class citizenship of women in the order? Why would that have been necessary? People have written on this. Why? what's going on with Kulavaga 10? Oh, any ideas? Why would someone want to make sure in writing, the Buddhist author, that the Buddha hesitated, he wasn't gung-ho about the idea anyway, and then it was his aunt, and then he made a declaration he did in this text. He said, well, if I hadn't done this, then my new teaching would have lasted 1,000 years. But as I'm allowing women, it will now last only 500 years. Why put in all that kind of stuff? What was this about? Can you imagine some possible suggestions? Why would a person have written a text saying all those things at once? Thomas.
Martin.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
And I called you Thomas before. I'm like, Thomas, I know you, Martin. Martin.
Anyways, you mentioned before the impact of this in the existing society.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a way of softening the blow.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You can't just say women can come out here and we're going to have women and men together. They have strict rules, just like they do. Yeah, okay. That's true. Forgive me for calling you Thomas.
No.
I wonder who Thomas is now.
What did you do to Thomas?
Oh, so sorry, Martin. Anne-Marie?
Because they were afraid that the women would all go and become nuns and leave the men to do their own dishes. Yeah. Uh-huh. That too. I should say that things get better. Just you should know about this. Okay, who else? Any other ideas as to why? One scholar wrote that, because it's really hard when you're reading canonical literature, Buddhist literature generally, find out when the text appeared. You know, no authors, and when might it have been? Well, Nancy R. Falk, who is F-A-L-K, she wrote a piece. Alan Sponberg has given 4 reasons why the Buddha might have hesitated. Alan Sponberg, you might look at that. Nancy R. Falk suggests that this was a time of heightened competition for alms and patronage. And she gives some reasons in her example. She says, and let me see, Gregory Chopin does this. He's an anthropologist who goes back and looks at nuns supporting themselves through time. He goes back and looks at the ruins of a bar that some nuns kept on the outside of the monastic confines because they weren't supported anymore. And the women found innovative ways to bring in funding. At any rate, there are people who work on this. Nancy R. Falk suggests that this was a time of heightened competition for alms. And the person who wrote this text wanted to make sure that if you thought about it, the Dharma has to be propagated. And the best person to propagate it is a male. And therefore, if you want the Buddhist Dharma to succeed, you must give money to them. If you only have one, you don't split it and give it equally. You give it to the monks' order because the monks really can carry the Buddhist Dharma into the future. And she gives some pretty good context for making that claim. And it may be right. I think it's a little too bad that that text has had such weighty consequences for nuns and for women, generally. Things got better. however. And I suggest here that in Buddhist literature, and then we're going to talk about moving towards the present. In Buddhist literature, what you find, I think, is that there were negative images of female and of the feminine that got better as the laity in general was viewed more positively. Now, that makes sense since women are a part of the laity too, but it has to do with the arising of the Mahayana. It has to do with communities moving closer to lay audiences. Let's give some examples. This one's pretty negative. So we have to be together longer. Please stay. We have food. Master says, a nun says, Master, now that we're monks, he's not even talking about women, we're monks. So a nun says, how shall we behave before women? Now think about it. Monks have left the home, right? But how are monks, bhikkhus, who beg, silent mendicants, who beg for food, aren't they going to see more women? Maybe some even that they know. This demands quite a break, you know? If you try to imagine what going from home into homelessness would entail. When monks have to come every day to a village and request food. Anybody ever been to a bar or alms gathering with people? Well, you usually see the same people. Unless you're told to go from village to village, you're usually going to see the same people. You're probably going to see people you knew. A nun asked the Buddha, how shall we behave before women? The Buddha says, a nun, you should shun their gaze. Don't look at them. Do not look at them. A nun says, remember, former playboy. But if we see them, Master, then what? The Buddha says, do not speak to them, a nun. A nun says, but if we do speak to them, what then? Then you must watch over yourselves. Then you must watch over yourselves, a nun. This requires restraint on the part of men's psyche. You know, they used to have children, they used to have wives. A nun used to be a playboy. You find these passages. I'm putting on, these are negative passages. I'm going to move from these quickly. Monks, Anguttara Nikaya, 111. Monks, women folk in their life, unsated and unreplete with two things. What two? Sexual intercourse and childbirth. Monks, there are 5 disadvantages to one who visits families. What 5? He sees women folk. From seeing them, companionship comes. From companionship, intimacy. From intimacy, amorousness. And when the heart is inflamed, this may be expected. Either joyless, he will live the godly life, or he will commit some foul offense, and he will give up the training. Verily, monks, these are the 5 disadvantages. One more. Monks, a woman, even when going along, will stop to ensnare the heart of a man, whether standing, sitting, or lying down, laughing, talking, or singing, weeping, stricken, or dying. A woman will stop to ensnare the heart of a man. Monks, if ever one would rightly say, it is wholly a snare of Mara, speaking rightly, one would say of womanhood. It is wholly a snare of martyr. Okay. Not too positive. Fools lust for women like dogs in heat. They do not know abstinence. Foolish men close to desire in a realm of demons, like maggots, they are addicted to filth. The ornaments on a woman show off her beauty, but within them there is great evil, as in the body there is air. With a piece of bright silk, one conceals a sharp knife. The ornaments on a woman have a similar end. Tika, I say, whew, tormented guy. The writer could not keep his mind off women. But then and these were all early Pali, actually Theravadan texts. But then as we move to a more positive time, what I couldn't put enough lines there on the board, but things, as we're moving from what's called the 3 higher trainings in the Theravada into the explosion from the 3 into 6. The 3 higher trainings in Theravada are moral deportment, discipline, meditation, wisdom. In the Mahayana, moral deportment becomes second, and the first becomes giving. I say the rise of the Mahayana is the rise of the mercantile class. It's exchanges, funding, all that sort of stuff. The rise of the Mahayana. The Mahayana monks accept money, not personally, but to build stupas, to build chortans, to build, and they're accused of that by their Theravadan counterparts. They're accused of going against Buddhist rules. And so it's said at the Great Council, 10,000 monks left. Those were all Mahayanas. And they moved the monastic confines closer to villages. Something happens. People who have an idea that if you do positive works, if you do positive deeds, good will come back. Somehow that appealed to merchants. I'm taking leaps and bounds here, so please forgive me. But Mahayana ideas of 6 paramitas, there's other ways that you can, as laity, practice this religious tradition. You don't have to become a monk. You don't have to become a nun. You can be a lay person and still support the Buddha's endeavor, so that giving becomes the first paramita, transcendent activity. You know what transcendent activities are? The paramitas. A bodhisattva practices the 6 paramitas. These are activities that transcend the ordinary. Here's an example. A bodhisattva who gives a gift, right, should give that gift in full cognizance of the fact that the gift itself is empty, that the giver is empty, and that the receiver is empty. That means give the gift without an expectation. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, otherwise it's just a business transaction. You give a gift expecting something in return. But a bodhisattva gives a gift. If you give it in a paramita way, then you're not expecting. You're not expecting. It's the I that expects something back. I'm going to give you this, and I hope you tell him. Tell Martin. You don't have to tell me. Just go tell Martin. You know, sometimes, I don't know, don't you do that sometimes? You hope somebody will find out that you're doing this. Oh, you were so good. Well, Buddhists would say that's tainted a little with attachment and expectation. So
giving a gift without those expectations and without attachment is acting in a paramita fashion, in a transcendent way, without expectation, without clinging, without hoping for a reputation. Anyway, okay. Now, with this move, didn't mean this to be this textual, this long, but I mean, I know I'm trying to be simple, and I know you have minds, and I know you're following that, so I'm not saying that. But Prajnaparamita texts were on the cusp. They were like 100 BC to maybe 3 or 4 AD, so they're on the cusp of that millennium. And they come up, and that's the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra. These are Prajnaparamita texts. And what those texts are saying, very interesting. Because there, in those texts, the Buddha is saying something quite different. You know, the words are put into his mouth. For example, in the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha says, "Those who by my form did see me, and those who followed by my voice, wrong the actions they engaged in me, those ones will never see. By the Buddha body, Buddhakaya, by the Dharma is one known." Now, that means it doesn't matter what form, physical form you have. You can't tell a Buddha by how he or she looks. This text is saying that. Doesn't matter, right? Because all of these things are empty. Everyone has Buddha nature, that's another more positive way of putting it. But that every dharma that we can experience is empty means don't grasp on to that form, don't have that bias about that form, oh, I don't like this color. We're always registering, and we're always making judgments every second. I don't really like the color of that sweater. I'm not going to tell you. But our minds are doing it. And much worse when we do it with, I really don't like it. I think that's a bad person. That one's dark. I know I don't like it. What are they doing in there? We're judging, right? Always. Until we gain some insight and we can sort of stop it a little. This Prajnaparamita idea about those who saw me, wrong the actions they engaged. You know the Zen saying, if you see the Buddha, kill him? Okay. That's a saying. If you see the Buddha on the path or on the road, kill him. What does that mean? You thought you saw the Buddha, and you latched on. Best for you to kill it, right? Don't grasp on. So the instruction there is about emptiness, it's about shunyata. If you see the Buddha, kill him. And don't go through life concretizing and perfecting, projecting. Girl, I met him, he was perfect. That guy, he was perfect. She had everything I ever wished for. We project, we make it permanent. Same with the Buddha. So if you see the Buddha, kill him. Try to go on unattached. That's the teaching, I think. Okay. So Prajnaparamita texts come and they say, you can't see a Buddha by her physical form. So then we have these Prajnaparamita texts and these statements about emptiness. And then women start to appear very differently. I think the people on the cusp here try to answer this query. We're going to take a break in not too long. They tried to answer this query. Early Buddhist texts had said, men can become arhats. Women can't reach that attainment, not in the female body. On the cusp, folk tried these genuflections that said, how am I going to resolve this? That a woman cannot attain enlightenment, and yet every being can attain enlightenment. They came up with some answers. How am I going to resolve these two seemingly contradictory statements. All beings can attain enlightenment, but women cannot attain enlightenment. How do I resolve this? And then you see these texts that say, this person who is female, just before winning enlightenment, took a step and magically appeared in a male's body, and then she attained enlightenment. You see, yet we laugh. Those are the kind of texts you start to see. Text of, Diana Paul calls, texts of magical transformation. Never goes the other way. But always, here's a woman, and she's just about to have the great insight. First, she has to become a male. The second she becomes a male, she'll attain enlightenment. Oh, texts are replete with this. Text that you know, text that you've read, text that you've heard about. That's the trope. In the Lotus Sutra, you often have in the Prajnaparamita text representative of Mahayana wisdom or Mahayana compassion teaching a Theravadan wisdom being. The Heart Sutra. You have Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. The Buddha of compassion. Who's he talking to in the Heart Sutra? Shariputra, the embodiment of Theravada wisdom. And Avalokiteshvara says, Shariputra, he's meditating, right? And he says, he reaches over like something Lama's open my Here, Shariputra, Iha, Shariputra. Here, in his meditation on insight. Here, form is empty and emptiness is form. The 5 skandhas are. Shariputra needed to know that. Okay. Heart Sutra sometimes. Some teaching on the Heart Sutra. It's important in Buddhist sutras who or whom is talking to who. Those writers know what they're doing, who they said in dialogue. So that's another layer of meaning for readers who are familiar with those characters. In the Diamond Sutra is Subhuti, who is a Theravadan monk, but he gained enlightenment or nibbana by meditating on friendliness or loving kindness. He then interrogates or has a dialogue with the Buddha. How should one behave who wants to enter the Mahayana way? And then the Buddha tells him. So these texts where people have to transform, in the Lotus Sutra, Manjushri. Manjushri, sword of wisdom. Statue. Watch it. Don't let it come down on you, boy. The head would go flying. Cut away self. Great experience, selflessness. Scary. It depends on who's wielding the sword, but at any rate. Sorry. No laughter. No laughs there. Sorry. In the Lotus Sutra, Manjushri, these are the texts where transformation is required. Lotus Sutra. Manjushri is talking with 2 people, monks named Prajnakuta and Shariputra. And Manjushri is saying, the other day, I met a young girl, and she was really super bright. I think she's right on the cusp of enlightenment. And then Shariputra and Prajnakuta say, it will never happen. It can never happen. She's a female. It can never happen. Manjushri is just speculating. I think she was so on the cusp. And then the young girl that they were talking about appears. And it turns out she is a Naga princess. Nagas are the keepers of wisdom. And the way that these are serpentine, supine beings. Nagarjuna went down to the land of the Nagas and came back with the Prajnaparamita text. Now, what he really did as a human being, he went to South India where there were Greek cults of Sophia and matriarchies, and he came back with these texts that he dedicated by saying to the holy Prajnaparamita, feminine goddess. The Prajnaparamita text recognize that Prajnaparamita as the goddess of wisdom is the mother of all Buddhas. All Buddhas come through her, through that wisdom that she holds. All these texts venerate her. Okay, but just one example from the Lotus Sutra. We can talk more, and I'm sorry, this is all about text so far. But in the Lotus Sutra, this dialogue happens, and then the Naga princess appears. And the way you can tell she's a female as opposed to a male is she has a jewel. You know, women, they like jewelry. So she has this big jewel in her forehead, and I take it male Nagas don't. So she appears. Oh, what you guys talking about? And Manjari says, well, and the other two are looking smug, and she says, I have an idea. She says, I'm going to go and I'm going to offer this to the Buddha. Offer this. And then she goes in the sutra, in the Lotus Sutra, she goes so quickly, it's like the cartoons where you just see the smoke. Shooms. She goes, she offers it to the Buddha, and she's back. She says, I think I might reach Buddhahood quicker than the Buddha accepted that jewel. What do you think? She says to all three of them, they all go. And then she takes a step and appears as a Buddha in another place, another island, Buddha realm, teaching as the Buddha. She does, however, take that step. Lotus Sutra, the step is still required. She says, quicker than that, I'll become a Buddha. And before their very eyes, she just moves a little. And then they see her as a full-blown Buddha teaching great crowds. But she had to take a step. And she's still a Buddha with transformation, magical transformation. How are time-wise? 5 more minutes? Yep. 10 more minutes? Okay. Vimalakirti, then we can talk. Shall I tell you a couple of more stories? Sutras. Yeah. You're so kind. Do you want to stand and stretch or anything? I mean, you've been great, but I don't want you to be uncomfortable.
We're good.
You're good? Okay. All right. Well, Vimalakirti is an interesting one. Vimala, that might work. Vimala means stainless. Vimala, no dirt, stainless. Kirti means famous. So here's this person who's famous for stainlessness, for his stainlessness. In other words, he's a pristine Dharma practitioner. This is a sutra on the teaching from Vimalakirti. But you wouldn't know that because Vimalakirti is a layperson, so the laity, more positive imaging of women. He's a layperson who sort of has 9 wives, like Marpa, and lives in the house. He drinks a lot. He's a layperson, but the Buddha knows that they're in the same camp, you know. So one day, there is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art a scroll done with pen and ink by a young Chinese artist, 17th century, who apparently did a scroll, I don't know how long this is, about this long. It's in a case, it's on permanent display. And his name was Wang Fu, F-U, I think. Wang Fu, when he was very, very young, pen and ink, made no mistake, for a whole year, he does as a time lapse the Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra. So you see Vimalakirti sporting, lying down on a couch, and you see goddesses and flowers, and you see a group of monks and Theravada and Mahayana. And you see it all laid out there. Well, the story is this. The Buddha wants his best monks to have a little teaching from Vimalakirti. And they all, whether they're Theravada or Mahayana, say, oh, no, please, please. Lama's open, Lama Ishi. Please, no, Lame. Why? Because every time we go there, he pulls some stunt, shows us up. Mahayanas and Theravadins. The Buddha says, he's sick, go see about him. That's the ruse between Vimalakirti and the Buddha. You know, they communicate telepathically. So they're going, oh, no, no, and the Buddha says, go. So you see them at the door. First, Shariputra enters the house, and they're all like hesitant, you know, you can sort of see it. And then the others push him. So Shariputra enters the house, Theravadan wisdom, right? Some dharmas in Theravadan philosophy were more real than others. Can you imagine? They cut down different schools of Theravadan Buddhism, cut down the number of dharmas considered more real than others. They cut down until they got to almost nothing. And that's how they distinguish themselves as philosophical schools. We count 100 real dharmas. Space is a real one, nirvana is a real one, you know. We count, you know, only 40. We count till ultimately the Mahayana is just completely, all dharmas are empty. Come on, get with the all of them empty. How you gonna say just the anyway? So Shariputra goes through the door. And when he goes through the door, there are these goddesses living in Vimalakirti's house. So as a welcome, one of the goddesses sprinkles flowers on Shariputra. Shariputra, whose wisdom hasn't expanded enough to know that all things are empty, he thinks, ooh, 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 and you see him going, ooh, ooh, flowers, that's unbecoming for a monk. Get away, get away. And so you see him on the scroll and in the tale itself, and then you see him there having a fit, you know, trying to get the flowers off. And then Manjushri just sort of glides in, regally. He's still scared of Vimalakirti, but flowers don't bother him. Vimalakirti, not flowers. So he comes in. And Vimalakirti puts them through all sorts of tests. And Shariputra gets more and more frustrated. So rather than turn to Vimalakirti, Shariputra turns to that goddess that sprinkled him with flowers. And he says, right, that's what you do sometimes, deflect it, you know. So he turns to the goddess and he says, well, what's keeping you in that form? You know, don't you have some wisdom? If you really had wisdom, you'd change your female form. You'd change out of it. He just attacks her, you know. And she says, Reverend Shariputra, I've been in this house 12 years, common number, and I've yet to find a female form. What would you have me do? So he's looking like, And then she says, if a magician were to suddenly transform, would you say that that transformed thing should leave its form? And Shariputra says, of course not, because that would be magically created. And she says, just so. And she zaps Shariputra, who then appears in her form, and Shariputra appears above, and he has a real fit then. What? What happened to me? Right? And she says, no worries. Changes them back. And that is to indicate, and so I'm told that people reading that had a really good laugh and realized from the beginning that she was the wiser one. Oh, Shariputra, they said, oh, not going to be good for you. In other words, people who, anyway, some people have said that was meant to be a humorous episode because the audience was clued in, you know, like poor Shariputra, you're just walking into it. But it's a case of transformation, even though it's the female who transforms Shariputra into something he didn't, you know, he couldn't stand. Okay. She says, just so are all created things, empty of self, neither male nor female. I've been looking for it for 12 years, haven't been able to find it. No such thing as female form, male form. That's the teaching of Vimalakirti. Tikaha. In the Sri Mala Sutra, very quickly, and then we'll break. In the Sri Mala Sutra, there's not even a question. There's not even an issue. There's no Buddha. There's a young princess. She gives the teaching herself to a large group gathered there. She's a princess. She gives this magnificent teaching. It's the one sutra, the first time it appears, something that we may have heard of called Tathagata Garbha. This is a synonym for Buddha nature. This is the first place it appears, with a female Buddha giving the teaching on Buddha nature. We all possess Buddha nature. She is saying, in female form, no need for transformation. We all possess Buddha nature. That's her instruction, right? And the sutra, and that's what she's doing throughout the sutra. And then it ends by saying, first, she converted all the women in the village, and then she converted all the children in the village, and that she brought them around her point of view, that all things are empty and everything has Buddha nature. There's no this nor that, but we're all capable of being Buddhas, unquestionably. Says, then all the women were persuaded, then all the children were persuaded, and then the men were persuaded. And then it ends. So there were these sutras written by different people trying to bring us along and bring us, okay. And they got more positive over time. They started off being kind of negative. And then they had to deal with, they had to figure out a way. And then they finally, with the Sri Mala. And the Sri Mala is the one that Empress Wu apparently liked a lot, and it sort of, you know, elites did that in the day. This is, I'll fund this one. She funded Sri Mala. Oh, tikaha. All right. So, my last comment, there are changing images in Buddhist literature of females, of the idea of women, of the idea of the feminine. Didn't talk so much about the feminine. Then we get to the tantras in terms of imaging. The males are always larger, even when you see them yabyum. Mother, father, it's called in Tibet. You see them together. The male is always larger, but they represent, the male is representative of compassion, which is apparently active, and the female, the woman, is always wisdom. Just as Prajnaparamita is a female, feminine deity, all Buddhas come through wisdom. Not one has been born without her. Whether you call her Dakini or Prajnaparamita or Tara. All Buddhas come through the door of wisdom to God. And now we should take a break. Thank you for being so patient, so kind. Thank you. Please have a good meal.
both because sometimes the Wesleyan one doesn't come through. So it's J. Willis. J. Willis. Maria, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
I can. Oh, yeah. People are quite
Okay. Please take a moment and breathe calmly and just settle in again. This is from my memoir, Dreaming Me, Black, Baptist, and Buddhist. Venerable Robina said once, well, I know it's supposed to be about Jan, but it's really about Lama Yeshe, which I took as the highest compliment. So, this is a chapter called Women's Liberation. When I reflect upon the 15 years during which Lama Yeshe was my teacher, it seems clear that his personal mission with respect to me was to build my confidence. He wanted me to realize and understand that, like everyone, in my innermost core, I was pure, intelligent, compassionate, and powerful. He sought to help me manifest that understanding. Lama Yeshe often said that low self-esteem and lack of confidence were the main traits he observed among the hundreds of Western students that flocked to him. I was not only one of Lama's earliest students, I was one of the ones that fit that bill perfectly. Some of the reasons are clearly cultural and racial. Being a Black American, a woman from the South, an African American woman interested in Buddhism. There are lots of reasons why. And when I first met Lama Yeshe at the age of 21, I was a less than confident human being in the world. Throughout the course of my relationship with him, I see his primary efforts as being directed towards having me manifest the qualities of confidence, pride, strength, and capability that he knew I possessed. Lama Yeshe used to tell me that I shouldn't hide so much. He'd say, "You should be beautiful, daughter, in the world, beautiful and strong." I vividly recall taking him to hear a lecture by Angela Davis. You know the activist Angela Davis? Okay. Once, when he was visiting California, I think it must have been 1978, she was speaking at the University of California, Santa Cruz, in the outdoor amphitheater on campus. Lama Yeshe was visibly excited to see and to listen to Davis speak. Several times during her talk, with clenched fists, he said aloud, "This is how one ought to be, strong and confident, like this lady." He absolutely loved her. And for a number of weeks after that, he would say to me, never as a put down, just a reminder, you should be strong like this lady. You should show your beauty
and your strength to the world. Okay. Then I go on. But he loved Angela Davis. Strong, like this woman. You should be strong. You should be beautiful. Show it in the world. Oh. You may know that Lama Yeshe that the nuns in a nearby nunnery said that the abbot, their former abbess, had been reborn in Lama Yeshe. Did you know that? No. Yeah. And that when he was a certain age, the nuns from that nunnery would come and get him. And so they were his first teachers. They would come and get him and teach him language and stuff like that. You know, he just loved it. And he would also say, he said, as I know, and some of you I know this from personal experience as well, he also wanted to learn to drive. And he ultimately did, not before crashing a few cars. And somehow coming out of it, I mean, some crashes were horrendous. And then Lama Yeshe would walk up, like, what? You're coming up from the cliff and the car's down there. And then he would say, yes, next day I use yours, daughter. It's just like, well, I don't know. He loved to shop. And he would often say that women's dresses were the ones that everybody should wear because they were more comfortable. It like goes without reason, without justifying, you know, like they're more comfortable. Yeah. TK. So some people have no problem at all with women. Lama Yeshe certainly had no problem, it seems, with women. And why should? And no one should have problems, but I mean, Lama Yeshe just loved everybody up, but Tika. So, I don't think I want to continue anything academic now. I don't know. I wonder if you have any questions. Maybe. Let's just put a few questions in the hopper. A few questions. Toss them. Not to be answered sequentially, maybe, but to be answered at some point. What do you think? What are you thinking of?
Could you talk about women and anger? As anger has been extremely helpful for me to recover from things and to express some rage, which I thought was always hidden, like as a woman I shouldn't express. And then also through Dharma, anger is bad. I wonder if you could talk about that in relation.
Thank you, Millie. Yeah. Yes?
I have a question. I will formulate it as I go. I will see if you
Sure.
understand what I mean.
Uh-huh.
In many ways, I'm quite new to Buddhism, and I haven't quite accepted all of the teachings. One of my issues is that there are certain parts that I fully accept, and there are certain parts that I do not, which is in part the nunnery system and the monk system, because I find it contradictory. So when I find it contradictory, I do not understand why I should accept the other ones, because shouldn't the teachings be whole in a sense? Do you understand what I mean?
Maybe.
Maybe. So my question is how to integrate these feelings of confusion?
That still strikes me as a bit broad. Are you saying it's confusing that you don't see equality in Buddhism that you'd like to see?
Yes, because why should I believe, why should I kind of practice the Heart Sutra or try to stand it
Mm-hmm.
when there are certain aspects of it that I find contradictory?
Mm-hmm.
For example.
Okay. Second question in the hopper. Okay, thank you. Good. Martin.
Yeah, I find what you just said about Lama Yeshe identifying this low self-esteem, sometimes self-hatred. I see that as the main challenge in our society, and I don't know if it might be maybe it's a bigger challenge for women, but in any ways I think this is one of the things that Buddhism has to, coming from this male monk-oriented Eastern background. This is one of the biggest challenges for Dharma to adapt to meeting Western culture and Westerners. So I don't know if you could say something more on that, perhaps. How can that be done? How can we help people who suffer from that?
Okay, 3, 4.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this. We cannot. There's somewhere somebody written. Woman cannot enlighten, become Buddha, or woman's form, and etc. And then later, in Buddhism, 3 things, right? Or is the wisdom, which is emptiness. By definition, emptiness, that means woman or man is empty. So if for truly like believers in Buddhism or practice Buddhism, by definition, those are not valid. The statement of all these things. So I think maybe those things are written by the mundane people, not by the enlightened ones.
Not the super mundane ones. Oh.
Yeah, and the same, you can see in the other religions that a lot of the doctrine is written by ordinary people, not by God. They wanted to have this, whatever the reason is, they write for their own convenience. So I'm wondering why, the very highly realized beings now in the Buddhism, maybe we could more easily cast those away.
Thank you.
I wonder if you can comment or
Thank you.
share insights in that.
Thank you so much. I think it's often the case that that religious traditions might not live up to their stated values and creeds. I think we can see a lot that's positive in the Dharma, in the teachings, but we have to remember that those teachings don't exist in a vacuum, so that they're institutions. The Buddha knew he lived in Aryan society. His father was head of one of the 16 republics of Aryan civilization. The institutions certainly were patriarchal, because at the time and still now, these are sites of power. Patriarchy, the things we run into, the sexism, people want to hold on. It's not just, I've seen the light. I heard the Buddha woke up and now I'm going to wake up. It didn't happen that way. It hasn't happened that way. We have to keep struggling to make it that way. But I would say, first and foremost, it's often the case that the doctrines or the foundational teachings And the institutions which propagate those teachings are, not the same. We shouldn't expect them to be the same when we know the history, when we know the context. So there's an imbalance there. Yeah. And ordinary people wrote these scriptures, like better give to the monks, not the nuns. The monks needed more. The nuns became a threat. Gotta stop it. Well, try this tact. People want to conserve power. And so there's that. One of the things Rita Gross was arguing in the Buddhism After Patriarchy was something like that. We better change the institutions then, change the society then, so we can make this teaching real. Anger, self-esteem. You may have seen some video of Sharon Salzberg talking with His Holiness when His Holiness says, no, really? Not everyone absolutely loves their parents? No, you're kidding. No. No, in fact, some people have low self-esteem. Some people, some of the rituals don't match because we don't all feel the same way about our mothers. We don't all feel the same way. We don't all come having Buddha nature, feeling it, No. It's funny to see him so shocked, because in his culture, the parents, you just love them up, You can't imagine that some people might not. I'm going to therapy because my mother really messed me up, See? Or father, right? His Holiness sort of couldn't grasp that for a long time. Oh, so I'm going to oscillate. I'm going to go back and forth between anger and if you don't mind. So Lama told me that he saw low self-esteem as the primary trait in Westerners. Now, I could see that in myself, but in the others, the ones that fund you to come here and all, they seem to be having a good life. They seem to think highly of themselves. No, we all have problems, right? Shantideva's the equalizing self and others is about the basic recognition that as human beings, we all wish to be happy and we all wish to avoid suffering. That's the common denominator, right? You're supposed to be able to, on the basis of that reasoning, know that you might as well love people because the hate won't get you far. And all right, but I could understand low self-esteem, right? I came dragging all these problems to Lama Yeshe. And it took him a long time to tell me, no, you're smart. No, I don't know, you weren't here last night, but anyway, this five finger gesture. He said, I say one thing, you think five. And I said, is that all right? Very worried. Silly, yeah, it's okay. And then he would just do that. No matter what group. You see his hand go up, 5. What you said. So it took a while to build self-confidence. And to try to build self-confidence without building self at the same time. That balance. That's what Lama Yeshe first said to me that just struck me dumb when he was on his way to brush his teeth and he looked at me and he said, pride and humility. In conflict, that's a tough one. I want to be strong in the world. I want to stand with as much dignity as everybody else.
that seems hard. I don't want to have too much ego in order to make that case. I'm here, damn it. I don't want to argue. I'm just the same as you, which is what a lot of African American families do with their children. At a certain age, something happens. It triggers what is called the talk. And African American families have that talk still. I want that talk to cease to be given. Just love your kids up and you won't have to tell them they're as good as the white girl. You won't have to tell them. So low self-esteem, I know about. So Lama says, though, he saw it more broadly. And he said, that's why it's good to practice Tantra, dear. Since we always are carrying around negative imagery of ourselves, let's get rid of that and visualize ourselves with divine pride. With divine pride. With divine pride. Not arrogance. It's divine because it's selfless, but it's capable and powerful. He said tantric practice that calls upon visualization of deities is then perfect for Western society. Visualize something really, hey, groovy. Hey, all right. That's who I am, right? But not stressing the I, just being happy with being on the path. You're gonna gain insight. You're gonna gain compassion. Oh, so he said, perfect method. Perfect method. Could I have those, you gave them to me probably. Taras? Yeah, they're here. Does everyone here know about green Tara? Well, you're about to get an image of her right now. Thank you. We pass them so quietly, delicately. It's all right, just pass it around. It's all right. There's a green Tara here, and I guess this is with the 21 Taras, because there are 21 forms of Tara, and the two most common. Are we going to have enough? Yeah. Oh, come on. Just exactly enough? Really? Yeah. You don't have one? Okay. You're together. Okay. Oh, so there's typically 21 kinds of Taras. Oh, let me say this. Tibetan Buddhism, employs a method that goes like this. It can be a kind of dangerous thing because it's a practice that's not separate Vajrayana. It's Mahayana at base. Mahayana means that you're on the path in order to help, in order to aid others. That's the basis of tantric practice. So there's nothing about it that has you expand your ego. You can't help others unless you're lessening that ego, right? So bodhicitta is a necessary requirement. And because one is using energy, it's important to have a guru. Guru can be female, right? But it's important to have a teacher because you're treading a path that is
speedy. It's called speedy because this is how I tell who knows let me oh, because because it uses the end as the means. It uses the end as the means. You want to become Green Tara? Become Green Tara now. And behave and go through the world and act as though you're Green Tara. It's a practice. Requires initiation, requires Jainung, requires all of that. But what you want to do is identify with one of these deities. Yidam means what your mind, yi, is bound to. What your inner self is most attuned to. Green Tara, and so Tantric Buddhism is like for all your separate ills, especially mental ones, you can go to the medicine chest. And there's this deity for this deity for this deity for this. You with me? I'm not trying to dilute or pollute or anything. I'm trying to give an idea of what tantric practice is like. You with a guru, what would you like? Oh, Song Rinpoche came to visit me. You can hold these, rest them for me. Song Rinpoche came to visit me, and before I knew it, there he was. And I had to move out of my apartment. I never thought he'd come. Lama Yeshe called me and said, Song Rinpoche is in the U.S. I thought, okay. I'm waiting. Song Rinpoche had scared me tremendously once before. When he left, Lama Yeshe sent us to Sarnath. Me and my two friends. There's three of us go to Sarnath because Lama Yeshe said, do it. He said, ask Song Rinpoche, request that he give you a lung, which is permission to practice the mantra of a certain deity, to say it. You go there and you say it with a teacher. He gives you some blessing to say it. And we went and, we scrubbed up and we went, and this is Song Rinpoche, goatees, very powerful. He causes thunderstorms and so forth. He was like real magician in the flesh. So we went to see him, and he read the note that Lama Yeshe had prepared, and he put it down, and then he howled for like 5 minutes. It seemed much longer. It seemed much longer. And then through interpreters, he said, he wants me to give you guys something? It was like, oh, we didn't want to come. We were scared of you anyway. It was like, he wants me to give this to you? He laughed again. So we're like, and then before we know it, there's all these implements there. And he gives us the lung, which is just reciting the mantra with us. Of course, he's done all sorts of things that we can't see, but then he recites the mantra. So then Song Rinpoche made his first trip to the U.S., and Lama Yeshe was, I think, in California at the time, or in Washington or something. He called me and he said, Song Rinpoche, this was going to be the second time I'd seen him, Song Rinpoche is in the United States. I thought, it's a big country. Phew. Song Rinpoche is in the United States. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He says, so invite him. Oh, God. I said something like, Mama, isn't he just in California? He said, they make airplanes. Invite him. Invite him, dear. Okay, so call him. I thought, no way, he's busy, blah, 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 blah. And the assistant says, oh, I'll check. Didn't. Oh. Rinpoche says he'd be delighted. Oh, gee. I'm still afraid of him. But he's coming. So I move out of my apartment. And this is going somewhere, this story. I hope. And for 8 days,
lamas streamed into Middletown, Connecticut, like that town had never seen, to talk with Song Rinpoche. I had moved out, but like a magnet. Okay, so the day before he's going to leave, he was there for 8 days, and he seemed to enjoy it. The day before he's going to leave, he said, please gather your faculty colleagues and whatever students, and Rinpoche will give them a meditation, introduction to meditation, Jainong, permission to practice. And since you're at a university, he thinks he will give an initiation into Manjushri. Because Manjushri represents Buddha's wisdom. And he's also helpful if you're forgetful. He thought it was appropriate. That's what I mean about the tool chest. So you want to increase memory and academic abilities, you might want to meditate on Manjushri for a while to realize that you have Manjushri's capabilities within you. That's how it works. Well, Kala Chakra, Mandala, 700 and however many deities, and they're each representative of a particular quality that you can expand within yourself. So it's important to know a teacher for a while and then to choose the one that's appropriate for you now. It could change over time, but who's your particular idam? The one that your mind is bound to, Tikaha. Some deities are more universal. Everybody wants compassion. Chenrezi, 4-armed, 1,000-armed, There's 108 forms of Chenrezi, 108 iconographic forms. So particular once a relationship has been made, this kind of thing. But compassion, green Tara, which you have before you, represents both long life, all Taras represent long life, and something extra. The something extra is capability, ability. You meditate with green Tara, you lose the tendency to say, maybe, you lose the tendency to say, I can't do that. So she offers, yeah, you've got the ability. Yeah, you can do that. And long life to do it in. Pretty good, huh? And that's why Amitabha Amitayus, the red deity that's in her hair, is there. Long life. I once bought a Tonka, and somehow Lama Zopa saw it before I was on my way home, and he saw it, and he said, take it back. I went, take it back. I think it's so much. He said, take it back. Can't use it in meditation. Can't use it. So Tonkas shouldn't just be decorative. They should be with a purpose, and they should have the whole meditative thing there. So if a green Tara doesn't have an Amitabha or an Amitayus there, a long life, that primordial Buddha is decorative but not useful in meditation. Boy, that was some hustle. I was getting ready to come back to the States after months in Nepal, and I had to go get that Tonga back and get another one, and it was heavy. But it all worked out. Tikaha. So, green Tara is one of those deities that's always helpful. It's said that Atisha meditated on green Tara when he was making his trip to Tibet. It's said now that lots and lots of Tibetans call upon green Tara when they're making trips, so they'll be successful. And it's just encouraging, So, green Tara's mantra is Om Tara Tara, Tutare, Ture Soha, Om Tare, Tare Tare, I'm saying. Om Tare Tare, Tutare, Ture Soha. Can you say that? Om Tara Tare, Ture, Tutare, Ture Soha. We don't say really swaha, we say soha. Om tare tare. Tutare. Tureye. Soha. Om tare tare. Tutare. Tureye. Soha. Okay. So, this is just a little gift. Please take home. Put somewhere where you can see it from time to time and say the mantra. Tare tare, tutare, tureye, soha. Tika. We're going to have song too, please. Oh. Did I say the feminine is always wisdom? Tika. Okay. So we're now, I think, in terms of Buddhist history in the West, coming back to England at some point, in the West, we've had the first wave of feminism, the second wave of feminism, and now, hashtag Me Too, the Me Too movement. And that is hitting Tibetan Buddhism particularly hard, but before that, in the 80s, there were these sexual allegations against teachers because the power got out of control. Western teachers and Asian teachers, for the most part, a lot of Asian teachers, who were doing things that gradually were being called out. And whether it was sexual offenses or financial offenses or alcohol related. And there are lots of books on this. But now we have more recently, Me Too. It's like sometimes I wonder how old you have to be to stop going through everything twice. Civil rights movement, 60s. Now, Black Lives Matter movement again, It's like, when will we finish one of these? What do you think? These are tough things, right? They come around. We don't deal with them, they come back. So wouldn't it be nice if we could have an equitable world where people didn't feel threatened, regardless of physiology or regardless of wealth, and they didn't feel threatened? Huh?
Absolutely, yes.
Wouldn't it?
Yes, yes.
Tika. But, do you know who's behind Me Too, so-called? Do you know? Twana. Most people think the actress, right? But it was a black woman who did it, and the actress gives her credit. Black woman, social worker. She had just seen too much, and she encouraged some of her clients to say something. And then the actress, whose name I don't remember, young actress, took it up. And it seems as though she founded this movement. Tawana Brawley. Oh. Tikaha. So now we see more and more, there are books coming out which are like exposés. This Lama, this Lama, this teacher, and then articles like, it seems Tibetan Buddhism is especially susceptible to this. Why? Because of the reliance on the teacher. Well, I don't know. I say to my students, please, don't check your intelligence at the door. Take it in with you. But so much reliance on the guru, Now I'm thinking, His Holiness has said, to a fault, people
do check their intelligence. They seem to, they weren't Buddhist and then they took Buddhist refuge, or they didn't, or they met a Tibetan and they say, okay, I'm in, count me in. Oh. So we can't sit at the feet of the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, and listen to him, but thanks to the teacher, we can hear the Dharma. So teacher is special. Without the teacher, we wouldn't hear the Dharma. Tibetan refuge, not just the one we did, but the Lama. The Lama is placed first. Lama, the superior teacher, male or female. Lama rests before the Buddha, because Tibetans say, before the teacher, I didn't know the word Buddha. Right? So the teacher's really important. At the same time, texts tell us we should use our minds and investigate what's best for us. I know it's a balancing act, but we have to decide this. You know, Ashwagosha's 50 verses on Guru, on devotion to the Guru, there are also texts on how you assess a Guru. That is, the Guru is supposed to bring something to this relationship too. And one of them is ethical morals, right? Ethics. The teacher's supposed to bring ethics to the relationship. You're not supposed to feel unsafe with a teacher. If so, that's not the teacher for you. Right. But now, more and more, it seems. In August, what is it, September? August 16th, a book was published. I do not recommend it. I don't even want it. But it's a book about Sogyal Rinpoche called Sex Violence in the Tibetan Tradition. And apparently, it's filled with heavy accusations. I'm so sorry for that. I'm sorry for the people he hurt. I don't want to gainsay any woman's experience. It's awful. I don't want the book either. And it does happen. It's inexcusable. So I don't think we should check our intelligence at the door. I think we should judge too. We want this relationship to be fruitful. So, what are you thinking, Millie, Anne-Marie? Yeah, about gurus. What do you think about teachers? Anya.
Well, you have to check them. Right? Check.
Yes.
I'm thinking it's also a practice in how do you say, self-consciousness in a way, because it kind of ties into your self-value, doesn't it? When you kind of surrender yourself too much to another person, take away your own power, right? To say, no, thank you, I believe in this, but I don't believe in you. Like you have to make the difference.
Yes. Have you ever been in a relationship? You used to take great photos, but the person you're in a relationship, sort of a photographer too, and you find yourself more and more, you leave the camera home? I just mean we do it in ordinary relationships too. One partner takes over that sort of thing. I was in a relationship once when I realized I couldn't use the phone to make a reservation anymore. She was quick. I'm going, whoa, that's a bit too much power to give over. That's too much to relinquish. You have to look at what you're doing. Right. And that's okay to do. That's really being mindful. We have to use our good senses. Thank you. Now, about anger. righteous anger and righteous discontent and I guess we'd have to make a distinction between let me say it this way. His Holiness says he's written on it, and then he's been called on it, and then he's had to change his opinion. He's willing to change on some things. He's still kind of hanging on about the women and the nuns. His Holiness once wrote, he said, and then somebody published a book said, he once said, anger under no circumstances is a good thing. And it took 2 or 3 years before a book came out in which His Holiness said, apparently, only the anger which really wishes the other person serious harm. His Holiness was trying to make a distinction between anger, which could spur you to do something, like speak up, and hatred, which is never good, because hatred wants to kill that other person. And so your karma from real hatred, which wants to eliminate somebody, you will have to bear that. So I think he was making a distinction then. It's sort of fine, and a lot of people didn't agree with it. But between anger, which both relieves you but calls you to action, which is more like righteous anger or righteous discontent, and hatred. Hatred is always, Shantideva writes a whole chapter, a chapter called Patience, in which he's talking about the downfalls of hatred. It's just, there's no upside to it. There's no upside to hatred. Or Dhammapada 5 that says hatred is never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by love. This is an eternal law. This is Dhamma. So I think we have to look clearly, to see which one it is, to restrain that one that wants to kill, see if there's positive, spurring from the anger that you're feeling. Last thing I'll say about this, in terms of some people have been here the whole time. The first night we were talking about, I don't know what we were talking about, but when we were talking about Buddhism in a nutshell, we're talking about Buddhism and activism, when I was saying, well, first let's talk about Buddhism. What do you think that is? And it's some nutshell sort of ways of thinking about it. I said that the one verse of Dharma I fall back on all the time as being the most succinct is Dhammapada 183. In Dhammapada 183, it stated, do no harm, practice good, discipline the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. I think it's all there. If you say, easy to say, not so easy to do, you're right. But there is a hermeneutic there's a way you can check up on your own part in an activity. And that's the part that says you're to question yourself. And the first, through 4 questions. Is this harmful to the other? Second, is it harmful to me? Is it a benefit to Martin? Is it a benefit to myself? Then and only then should you carry forth with the action. If you can answer no to one of those 4, you can't do it. So that gives you there's actual method to it,
in the end, we all want the same thing: to be happy. But we keep, apparently, since we're not enlightened, some of us sitting in this room are not. I can't speak for everyone. But since we may not yet be enlightened, why is that? That's because even though we all have the same wishes, we keep proceeding only in ways that cause harm, that cause us harm. So wouldn't it be good if we could learn a way that would keep us out of danger, that would keep us from creating the causes of more suffering? Well, this is what I think Buddhism hopes to do. And the Buddha said to those first 5 disciples, Ehi pasika, come and see for yourself. Come, check it out. You don't have to accept anything. Just come and see for yourself. Keep your eyes open, always. So in the end, all we want to do is be free. Whether it's J. Cole saying it, be free. Take those chains off. Be free. We want to be free. We want to be loving. We want to be kind. We want to be wise, bless you, and we want to be content. I don't know if that's laden, another kind of religious tradition. We want to be satisfied. We want to not have the gnawing feeling that it's never quite enough. That is the basic disappointment. I wish it were otherwise. We wish it were otherwise. I wish this wasn't so long. Oh, I wish I had such. I wish. In other words, you wish that where you are now was different. That's a basic common denominator, wishing that things were otherwise. Well, that keeps samsara going. You know, you're not at peace. Oh, but there's a path leading to that. Okay. So since we all want to be free, there's a song that's sort of joyous. Oh, do I have them? I bet I have them. Wait just a second. So you got a green Tara, and you got the lyrics to Nina Simone singing. I figure strong women at the end talking about freedom is good. Feel free to dance, to sway, to sing, to enjoy. We might play it twice. So many women's movements use this as a theme song. Latest one I heard was a woman who does diversity training and women's training and community organizing in Chiang Mai. This is her theme song too. It's universal. Huh? Yeah. Hui Pun, she uses it in Thailand. And she invites you all to come if you want to learn a little community organizing. Are we ready? Everybody have the lyrics? A little louder?
Do we need to play it again? Shy, were you ready to dance next time? We want to take a group picture before we all leave. Are there any questions?
About Buddha being contradictory, I just want to say, usually one says it's kind of 84,000 teachings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's to suit different persons in different circumstances. So the teachings are in a way contradictory, in a way.
Different things catch different people.
Yeah.
In
Which
circumstances.
is very wise, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, sometimes it's a problem, the person who is teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like Buddhist, but I do a lot of meditations.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of time it's men, and they never had a relationship.
Uh-huh.
And they started working with the traditions when they were very young. So there's a boy sitting in front of me telling me how to live my life.
Mm.
And I'm a woman. I've raised a lot of kids. I
Mm-hmm.
have a family.
Mm-hmm.
Just being a woman is making me aware that we are all a part of the family that I'm a part of. It's in my blood. It's who I am. And for me, that creates a problem.
Mm.
And right now, I'm struggling with that because
Mhm.
like a point is I'm like saying, but where's my religion? I'm tired of taking it down from men. It's like when you say this tradition, I'm like, yeah, well, sort of like the Catholics, and and then you find the Mother Mary, and then now we have this wonderful Queen Tara. I love her, and I love meditation and everything, but it's just I'm so tired of it. I don't, and of course, this is the way we are, and but I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we could just make up our own?
Yes,
Our own, not
it would be great.
looking for somebody else's,
Mhm.
but really creating it from.
Well, it depends on whether you want to make another group for women that's just for women.
No.
Mm.
I mean, I have this feeling right now, there's a change from the more masculine sort of movement in the word, and it's sort of changing, and not in a sexual way, more like in like the feminine powers, the one that that with everything going around and the belong and the relation stuff and all that. With that's kind of an era that's coming along now, and I really found a lot of that stuff within the Buddhist, but then I still get really upset when this boy of 47 who never raised kids is telling me how to live my life. I'm like, and then maybe it's my ego, maybe it's like, but it's hard for me. It's hard.
Can you communicate any of that to him? Is it worthwhile?
No, I mean, this is. I mean, yes, I am talking about a certain teacher right now, but he's also the manifestation of a lot of teachers that I have met.
Yeah.
So it's not just that person, and if I would exemplify with this person that I'm talking about right now, yes, to him I could talk, because I think he's also, he knows, he's aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
And he also sort of raised the question that maybe like about the anger stuff, and he was like sort of like, well, and I don't know if I'm quoting him now, probably not, but this is what I heard, that is sort of Buddhist from the beginning was for young boys with a lot of energy, and for them to sit down and sort of just harbor that energy, and that kind of energy, I'm not saying women don't have it, but we have another kind of energy maybe, so we don't need to harbor it. We don't need to harbor our anger in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Maybe we need another kind of practice, more saluting or bursting up the energy, like a completely different way of doing this. And I'm just, this is my struggle right now.
I think it's terrific that you share that. I think lots of people clearly feel that way. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
So many women experiencing the same frustration. Exactly the same. Thank
And I think in Sweden also, in a lot of places where I go to do this, there's mostly women.
Yes.
It's like there's 90% women on the retreats, and 90% women. There's always
Is that right?
women, and it's like, oh God, I'm like. And it's good stuff. I mean, it's really good stuff. Really good stuff. And so it's a very hard for me.
So what can be done? Yeah. Yes.
I was wondering if you've heard of, I don't remember the name of it, but the book is called Perfect Enlightenment by a woman, and I can't remember her name now, but I had a teacher talking about this book, and I also started reading it. But then they say that in the Tantra, before it kind of came into the monastics, so it must be kind of 800s or something, and then the female was really saluted, and also that the female was kind of the leader, and then so she had she could choose whatever partner she wanted, and then there was no, I can't explain it. But anyway, the female was very saluted, and many female were teachers as well, and having.
That's
so
definitely true.
Like, and then my teacher said that this whole tantra came into the monastic, and then it was kind of like filtered through centuries of this male kind of energy, and then that's how sometimes the dharma that we get from.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the practice itself. I'm thinking you may know Sultan Malioni's Women of Wisdom, where she's talking about women practitioners. Jerome Edu and more recently Sarah Harding write about Machik, who is a 11th century tantric practitioner who founded a tradition of tantric practice called Chud. If you look for it in academic kinds of books, some people have said, this Buddhism, is pessimistic from the beginning, and now this violence comes in meditation. Because it's about feeding your demons, and sometimes the practice calls for you in the academic text to, cut up parts of yourself and feed them to the demons. Now, if you practice Chud, and this is a particular practice now. If you're practicing Chud, what you find out Machik did was, it's not so much drums and this and the other, but it's dharmarus and making music and gates, certain kinds of gates. She uses the body comes back in. Certain dances. And this was a practice that Kala Rinpoche and the Shangpa Kharjus do. But I was going to say Lama Yeshe would have known this practice. And other teachers now do this under certain circumstances. I'd ask you to read Sultan Malioni's Feeding the Demons. She gets that part of the practice, feeding the demons. But it involves a totally different kind of practice, an embodied kind of practice, And that might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
Men and women practice Chud, but she founded this tradition, and all the four major sects took it in.
And what was her name again?
Machik. Machik. Uh-huh.
And Sultan Malioni.
And Sultan Malioni wrote, this is an eraser, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Machik. Chud. It's a practice of cutting off, but in the way that Manjushri cuts off. It's wisdom inducing. Okay, the practice is this. Chud. Chud. Cutting off, to cut. Okay, and Machik is, and sometimes you'll see that spell Machik. Machik. Machik with a K. With a K instead of a G, okay? It's just how you pronounce it. Sultan
an Italian woman who came to me saying, would you sponsor through Antioch University my going overseas to record women's life stories? I said, yeah, why not? It became Women of Wisdom. Bestseller. Oh boy, the timing was perfect.
Naši nadrom.
Mm-hmm. Okay, she founds this tradition called Jude. Aliona's written Women of Wisdom. I'm going to send Anne-Marie some of the other titles I mentioned today. Is that all right?
Yeah, cool.
Sarah Harding has written Machig's Life and Practice. And Sarah Harding spends her time translating Tibetan texts, but she's done 2 3-year retreats too. She teaches at Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado. Sarah Harding, that's not very clear. Harding. She's written a book on Machig, spelled with a K. Did I mention something else? Jerome Edu. It's an older life translation, life story translation. But if you look into this practice, you may find it something, that's a good way. People do that these days. Techies. You mind, Professor Willis, move? Let me get the board. Thank you so much for your comment. It was really helpful.
Well, thank you.
Well, maybe there's makings of a group to determine what might be done, or a little more be done. That what you wanted? Good. Yes. Sorry, I don't know your name.
It's Ava.
Ava.
I thought it's really important to express these kind of things because we're not passive students.
Mm.
And it's a relationship, right?
Yeah.
The teachers should know
Yeah.
thinking and feeling to be able to help us. And if they're not, they should know that they're not helping us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm not accusing anybody for being who they are. I mean, it's sort of, that could be like being what I don't like to be done to in reverse.
Mm.
So I have full respect for that. These people are wanting to deliver a tradition and helping me to understand it. So in a way, it's my own whatever going on in my own mind that's making it a problem. But in a way, it's sort of what you were talking about from the Me Too movement, that some stuff, I can leave at the door, but some stuff I cannot.
Mm.
And maybe this is something that I should respect. I cannot leave at the door. And it's actually telling me something, there's something here to be pondered upon or investigated, or like questioned, or not to ruin or destroy, more to like, okay, there's something interesting going on.
I'm glad. I don't think that genie can be put back in the bottle either. I think it's out. Anything else? Okay, it's a little past 9. Can you take a photo? Can we hear the song again in the background at least? Yay! Thank you all. I wish the best for everyone. I leave in the morning. It's been a great visit. I thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.